Hello and welcome to WJTS in.form. I'm Bill Potter, your host, and today we're going to talk about salt and how to use salt in your diet, or maybe to use less salt in your diet for a healthier lifestyle. Joining us in the studio is Jan Dougan. She is the Extension Educator from Purdue with Du Bois County. Jan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, salt is something that I enjoy, but I'm sure I use way too much of it.
You know, most Americans have a taste for salt, and they use salt a lot. And the new dietary guidelines that came out a few years ago really strongly encourages us to cut back on our use of salt and sodium for a healthier lifestyle.
Let's talk about there's salt, there's sea salt, there's iodized salt. Mm-hmm. What is the kind of salt that we should be using if we use salt?
Well, really, iodized salt or sea salt is fine. A lot of people think that sea salt is better, and it's really not any better for you. It's still salt. Iodized salt is good if you're going to use salt because it has the iodine in it that we need some of. But we really want to try to get Americans to think about not having more than, get this, Bill, 1 teaspoon of salt a day.
Well, how can you measure that when... how do you measure that? I know I can measure out a teaspoon of salt, okay, but I eat some fries and then I might eat some cereal, and I'm sure that there's probably sodium in cereal. Yes. In the bread that I'm eating, there's a little bit of, what do I do?
Well, I think it'd be a really great idea for a lot of people to start watching their food labels about what they're eating, and you can even get the nutritional information if you're eating out on a lot of the websites. They have that information. But just for a few days, just be more conscientious about looking at sodium on food labels to get a handle for how much you're really taking in. Try using that salt shaker a little less. A lot of people, I think, are just on automatic pilot. There's certain foods that they just immediately grab the salt shaker and start salting their foods without even tasting their foods first. And I think a lot of us are just, our taste is acclimated to having that salt taste. But once we start backing off from that and not having as much salt, when we taste something, it really tastes salty to us. So it's really an acquired taste that we have. It's not something that really comes naturally. So if we can start using the pepper shaker more than the salt shaker, that would be a good first step.
Isn't there even products out there you can buy that are salt or sodium free, that is a mix of herbs and spices that helps to dress up food?
Yes, and you know what? I brought my grocery sack with me today, and I put a few products in from home.
That's the one.
So this is a product that is lower in salt. This one is salt-free. So, you could substitute seasonings like this. So that's one step that you can make, and watch for using those. I also went out into my garden, and I cut a piece of rosemary. So smell this, Bill.
Oh, I love the smell of rosemary.
Yes, doesn't that smell wonderful? Great. So you can use fresh herbs to season your food. So then you're cutting back on the amount of salt and you're enjoying a different taste. So I would encourage anyone to try to grow 1 or 2. If you don't grow herbs, just try 1 or 2. You can do them in a pot inside the home, or you can do them outside the home. But just try growing 1 or 2 herbs and using those that you like, and see if that can help you reduce your salt and sodium intake. We also talked about switching from salt to the pepper shaker. And what I have found is if your pepper has a more intense flavor, you're more likely to enjoy it more. So if you grind your own peppercorns, they sell these inexpensive little grinders in the grocery, and you can buy them and just use those. And so, like, maybe if you take your lunch to work, you might want to keep these in your lunchroom so that you have this, so that you grab the pepper and grind your fresh pepper onto whatever food you're having rather than grabbing the salt shaker. So that's another way. Let's see what else we have in here. Products. It's not the salt shaker that we get most of our sodium and salt from. It's really from prepared foods that we use. So if when we shop, we try to buy those foods that are lower in sodium, have less sodium, that's a good first start. You can check on the front of the label. It will usually tell you, but you can also look on the nutrition label to see how much sodium is in the product. So we can check that on this part of the label also. So if you look at the sodium, and this product you can see here, you need to look at it closer.
450?
450
60.
milligrams,
Okay.
but what's the percentage of daily value?
19%.
19%. So even this product that's reduced sodium is really kind of high in sodium. And that's because it's a prepared product. So people get confused about the milligrams. I think I've come up with an easier way for people to think about this. This daily value, this percentage, 19%, we want to try to stay below 20%. That's a good choice.
On any product that you buy?
On any product for sodium, when you're checking for sodium. Because sodium is something we do not want in our diet, so we want to stay below 20%. Between 5 and 20 is a product that's okay. Under 5% would be an excellent product to get. It's called the 5-20 rule. So if 5% or less sodium is in the product, it's a good product. It's a great product. If between 5 and 20% of the daily value, it's a good product. If it's over 20%, it's okay to use, but you might want to watch how much you're using of it, and you might not want to use it all the time, and you might want to reduce your other food choices that day to choose foods that are lower in sodium.
I'll bet if we added up how much sodium we're eating in a day's time, we'd be amazed at the amount. Now this says 460 milligrams.
Right.
A teaspoon is a teaspoon.
Is 2,300 milligrams.
Okay, so that way we can kind of do it that way too. To get, I think it might be kind of fun to add up your numbers to see how much sodium you're actually eating.
Well, you know, if you've gotten a report back from your doctor that you need to cut your sodium intake, it's really important that you do that. Most of us really need to watch, and we need to start watching and be aware of how much sodium we're getting. So if we stop using the salt shaker, if we start using products like the Mrs. Dash product, that salt-free, any kind of salt-free seasoning product, if we start watching the amount of prepared products we use and buy products that are lower in sodium, that will help. There's another thing we can do, Bill.
Okay.
And I brought along a strainer.
Okay. So that removes salt from all food?
No, it's not going to remove salt from all food, but the canned foods that we buy, let's say you're going to buy canned green beans, if you rinse them before you use them and drain that liquid that's in them off of them, that will help reduce the sodium. And in some foods, it can reduce the sodium up to 40%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just basically strain the foods that are processed.
Right, right. If it's a possibility to do. Not all processed foods you can, but some of the vegetables you easily could rinse with water before using and reduce the intake of the sodium. Or instead of buying a canned green bean, you might want to buy a frozen green bean, because if you check the food labels, the nutrition labels on the frozen green beans and the canned green beans, you're going to find that the frozen product is probably less in sodium.
Is there a time of your life, maybe an age time, that you should be concerned more about sodium? I think we start to think about sodium when we get older, but it's probably too late at that point.
Well, really, you know, everybody needs to watch, and even young children we need to watch and get them on the right track early in life, but it's really key after 50. It's really key after 50. And when you think about the number of folks that maybe you know or I know that have heart disease, it's the #1 health issue for a lot of Americans. And high blood pressure is one of those problems that can lead to heart disease, and high blood pressure is partially, not totally, but is impacted. Let's say it's impacted by the amount of sodium and salt that we take in every day.
Okay, and obviously we do need sodium in our diet.
Yes, you need
someplace, but we just get a lot of it we don't even realize we're getting.
Right, exactly.
Do fruits and vegetables naturally have some sodium in them?
Oh my gosh, they do, but to pick fresh fruits and vegetables, that's an excellent way to cut down on the amount of sodium, because there's a lot less. There is some in foods naturally, but there's not the amount that is in the processed foods that we choose. So if we choose to eat an apple over processed apples, then, you know, that's a better choice.
Are we adding salt to processed foods to help preserve them?
It is. It's partially a preservation, but it's partially flavor. And Americans are just used to that, and so we're getting what we're used to.
But we can change that by using some alternatives
Yes,
to
we
help to
can.
season your foods.
Yes,
Do you have
we
anything
can.
else in goodies in there? You got some lemons,
You know,
I see?
I've got a lemon.
Okay.
So we can use lemons to season things rather than salt. Think of some other things that you enjoy the flavor of. Vinegars. Vinegars are a great way. You know, make your own salad dressings. That would be one way to cut down on the amount of sodium. You know, if we do some more preparation at home using fresh products, that's going to help cut down on the sodium. So those are just a few ways that we can do it. It's not just the salt shaker. It's, you know, a lot of the foods that we're choosing, unfortunately, eating out at a lot of the fast foods, we're getting, you know, more sodium by doing that. So we just need to be aware of what we're doing. And I'd like to challenge those who are watching and listening to maybe just think about your sodium intake. Start looking at some of those nutrition labels and see if there's just one thing you could do. Just start with one thing. And if that means just using the salt shaker a little less, that'd be great. If you want to start straining your canned products that you purchase, that will help. Or start using seasonings or start using fresh herbs. Just pick one dietary change that you can make, and you're on your way to a healthier lifestyle.
And what makes it easier nowadays is almost all products seem to have a low sodium alternative to them
They
as
do.
well. So years ago that wasn't always the case, but now you know you can buy crackers or you can buy low sodium crackers. So
Yes.
you just look for it.
Yes, but you know, you really need to look at the food labels and see what you're getting. Because sometimes when you're trading off one thing, you're getting something that's a lot higher in something else. You know, so we just really need to be reading those food labels and understanding what we're eating.
Take the time when you go grocery shopping.
Yeah, it's a great time to do it.
Jan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
We hope that you learn to reduce sodium in your diet. We want to thank our guest, Extension Educator Jan Dougan, who has joined us in the studio of WJTS. We are local people watching local people.